Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamünaleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah we will start with the third phrase today. So far we studied two phrases. We studied La ilahe illallah, and then we studied Wahdahu. And inshallah today we will study La sharika lah. He has no partner. He has no partner.
Is this? We're not discussing this, are we? No?
We covered this already.
Oh, there is something wrong with the text?
Think so?
We had a different paper last week.
Yeah.
This will be a different. So we will discuss the
Third phrase there. He has no partner. So, since you two have a good memory of what we did last week, let's start from you, Sultan. You don't remember anything? Okay, Dua, would you like to remind us what we studied last week? Since you can even have the photographic memory of the text in front of you. Okay, I can remind you that we studied Wahdahu. So he is the one. And before that, we studied La ilaha illallah. And we studied that we try to understand when we look at the universe, when we look at the creation, we see.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, please.
So we talked about.
Is your mic on?
Yeah.
Okay.
We discussed how when you look at like God's creation, especially at animate creatures, we can look to their beginnings and ends to do what? To figure out like, okay, I'm gonna tell you my thoughts. They might not be like what we actually studied. But like we can find out the purpose of life through them, and we can't just look at the beginnings of things. We also need to look at their ends to see, for example, so the beginnings are like the instruction manual or like the index through which like God gives birth to things. So I was thinking of like how like a donkey baby knows how to walk at birth. Human babies don't. And you know, like those are those different like set of instructions that we are born with, and that represents like the strength and the will of Allah. And then we also talked about how their ends are the results, the fruits, and that basically shows us like the knowledge of Allah. And we need to look at the beginnings and ends of things to really figure out like their meaning and their purpose. And I was also thinking about how then you can't look at a human's life and just be like, oh, you know, like this is it. You also need to look at their end, which to me, I was thinking about how that's the eternal life also, because that is our end ultimately. And, you know, we have like, there's a lot of discussion about like, oh, you know, I went through this much suffering in my life and this person didn't. And how is that fair? And it's just like, we haven't seen our end yet, you know, so we don't know the result. And we, without looking at that, we cannot holistically say, you know, that this is it, or this was our experience, or this is unfair, or whatever. So yeah, this is what I was thinking about. And then at the end, we arrived at the same like oneness argument, like what does it mean to be one? Sarah asked that question. I wrote a really nice answer on my paper, but it's not there anymore. So
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So good points. Let's tie back to he is one. We talk about the beginning, we talk about the end, we talk about the external, you know, the aspects. We talked about the internal aspect, the zahir, batin, and so on. So how are we going to tie them to he is being one? Why we talk about these different aspects of things? Any idea, any thoughts? So you mentioned different aspects, different dimensions of beings, right? The beginnings, ends, and then the outwardly looks or inner workings, different things. So how this multiplicity or these differences somehow tell us that he is one.
I think the idea or what I got from it was that even though you see like these different things and these different like animals and plants and whatnot, you do see like attributes of Allah in them, like the strength of Allah, the knowledge of Allah, the will of Allah. And it's like across all these different species and beings, you see that it is that same strength, that same wisdom. So the idea was that it's one knowledge and one strength. And at the end, the answer that Yusuf gave to Sarah, it was like, even though you have like A, B, C, and they're all different, they are letters of the same alphabet. And you can look at the alphabet and you can be like, oh, you know, like this grammar, these letters, they're coming from the same language, and that language is English. So you don't need to question like what if there are two gods and whatnot. And we also talked about that rule that scholars have, that unless the possibility emanating from lack of evidence has no real basis. So if you don't have evidence that there are two gods, then that possibility isn't based in anything. It isn't rooted in anything. So you just need to look at the evidence that you have, which is that there is a coherence here. It is the same strength, same knowledge, and that's how it all ties back to oneness.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Any other additions? Sarah, would you like to add anything? Just asking, because you said your friend that you don't have to, contribute, you don't have to share your ideas and so on. I'm just showing her that you were right. Like, you don't have to speak. Would you like to speak? Microphone, please. Yeah.
This time, but yeah, I just remember why or how we concluded with the oneness. I remember we talked a lot about the origin of something, or how it starts, or the beginning of something and the end. And like we gave an example of a plant, how a seed, for example, starts, and in the different like stages of development of this plant, you could see as Dua said, the coherence. You could see that there's a continuation. You could see that whatever made this part of the plant knew this part and knew how to make the second part, or the second stage. And yeah, we talked also about how like the end of something, which for example like a fruit or so, reflects again the beginning. So yeah, I think this order and coherence and the idea of like the ends bring us to the beginnings, led us to like something like oneness. And yeah, I remembered like the question of why can't it be multiple, very knowledgeable, well communicating gods making something. And yeah, the answer from Brother Yusuf is what Dua said, is like there's no need for such thing, basically.
There is no sign of
Yes.
it. There is no evidence for it.
Yes.
Like what we see is the oneness. This is what we see. So beyond that would be just speculation.
Yes. I just don't understand what Dua said, like there is the same knowledge everywhere, which doesn't really reflect much, because the world is very diverse. So there's actually different, like, can we say knowledges? Like different.
Let's open this.
Yeah.
That's great.
Like if you
point.
look, I don't know, if you look at the different plants, there's so much diversity, humans, animals, whatever. So it seems like there's not the same knowledge everywhere, but maybe there is the same like kind of perfection everywhere, or the same order everywhere. But like the same is, I don't know if we can see the same. I mean, we can say like, I feel saying like it's the same knowledge means like everything looks the same, like, but it's not the case.
Yeah. How good you are with paintings. So if I
I'm
show
so
you,
bad.
for instance, 3 paintings from, let's say, Picasso,
Yeah.
would
You
you
didn't-
say that, oh, these are from different painters, or I see something there, it's coming from the same artist? Different paintings.
This kind of thing. Yeah, you could look at the paintings and see that this is coming from the same, like Picasso had his style, Monet had his style. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can
And this
say
is
that
the basis of actually the fact that we have this commonality when we look deep inside, made people go astray and say that since there is a commonality, we don't need any God.
Hmm.
I don't know what the logic there, but anyway, so the commonality is accepted by everybody, believer or unbeliever. What you do with this commonality, I guess,
Right.
is the difference. But when we say the same knowledge, so we should be a little bit careful there. We don't mean that we see the same amount of knowledge or same, you know, a single knowledge is repeated everywhere. But what we mean instead, whatever you look, if you look at this computer, for instance, or a piece of, I don't know, a stone, you will realize that to give rise to the single piece of stone, you have to know everything in the universe. Without knowing, without making a connection with everything in the universe, you cannot even give rise a single piece of stone or atom or whatever, like the smallest things that you think that you can think of. So there's comprehensiveness of the knowledge. That's what we mean with the singularity. It's not just one piece of knowledge. It's wherever you look, you will realize that you need the same comprehensive, absolute knowledge. So you cannot divide it. That's the oneness in one sense. So otherwise, it's not like you are right. Like when we look at the manifest world, we see the differences. But within each instance, every different thing, you will realize that it needs to be tied back to everything else. Hence, whoever made this must be knowing all other things as well. All these diverse things too needs to be known. Hence the oneness of the knowledge. Otherwise, it's not one type of knowledge. The knowledge needs to be comprehensive. Limitless knowledge everywhere, every single instance.
And
and
interconnected. So like,
exactly, everything is interconnected, which tells us whoever moves this single atom needs to move everything else as well. So it cannot be like, oh, Sarah, please move this and I will move that. It cannot be that way because everything is so connected. And we know that when I move a single atom, actually everything is moved to accommodate this movement. Going back to beginning, end, and so on, please. Okay, so do we have WhatsApp here? Or you will do it? Okay. We will drop the link in chat. Yeah. Thank you for your contribution. Okay, going back to Zarin, you want to say something? Please go ahead. Sarah implied that you want to say something. Okay, so the beginning, end, and so on, all these different aspects of a single thing. We also said that when we look at these different aspects of a single thing, you will realize that they are also all connected. There's a perfect cohesion, coherence between like a beginning of a thing, end of the thing. I'm sure he can have fun himself. So we see that whoever creates the product, end product, the fruit of a thing, also creates the beginning of a thing. Please, microphone.
I have a question. I don't know if you guys covered it in the previous week, but I wasn't here. So the question is, he is one. How is that important in one's personal life? Like, for example, in a personal life, how is this phrase important? He is one. Like, I don't need two, three. Like, why is there the one thing in for example, in a personal life? For example, you can say about the whole world, the comprehensive things, all of that is okay, but why at a personal level, how does it work? He is one.
Perfect question. And we studied this when we studied the first station. In the papers that you have, if you go a little bit up, the answer is there, but don't look at, and let's remember together why he is one is important, why we even study this. That was the first question we asked. Why we even study this? Is it like, we have free time, it's better memorize Wahdahu and understand it better than, watching a soccer game or whatever game you're watching? Zeren, now you can help us.
So I guess the idea was that so when we looked at the 11 phrases, the idea was that they're supposed to contain some sort of, like, I guess the phrase used was good news or like a cure for us. And so that kind of implies that if these are the cure, there must be a disease that we're facing. And so if he is one is the cure, then our disease must therefore be there are many. Like that, I guess that would be considered the disease. And I guess the idea is that, at least the way I try to look at it now in my everyday life, is that if there's something in my life that's like causing me stress, like I need, for example, if I'm working in my lab, I need this experiment to work. I need to show my advisor that I'm making sufficient progress. I need to help my coworker do something in the lab, or I need to mentor students. These are all like different things that I'm sort of submitting to, or like quote unquote worshiping, that each thing requires like a division of like my attention, I guess. And so I guess he is one is supposed to be a reassurance to me that even if I have all of these different things going on in my life, that they all come from the same source. And so there must be some wisdom or experience that I need to be gaining from these different experiences in my life, and to look at life in this sort of manner.
Yeah, that's very important, right? We have all these different things in our life. And as text told us in previous weeks, the authors told us, our heart is connected to the entire universe. Like we get, let's say, saddened when something happens in another part of the world, even, right? We are interested in the things which are far away from us, or we are connected with all these people surrounding us. So as if there are many things that we are concerned with. There are a lot of people, too many people that we have to satisfy, it seems like, right? So let's imagine he's not one. And what it means, this is not about, like when we say he's not one or he's one, don't please take it as just as a quote unquote, like a cosmological argument, whether God is one or not, whether there are multiple gods fighting to each other. No, it's about your where you ask from, whom you are asked from. That's the point. So let's imagine the inverse. So Zara, how many people in your life, just imagine, if you can give a number, how many people you have to satisfy in your life? It goes beyond 5, right? Yeah. And like going back to what Sarah said, all of them I can imagine different people, like different type of people, different styles, different characters, and so on. It must be really overwhelming to satisfy all of them. And why do you think that you have to satisfy them? Like your, let's say, professors. How many professors do you have? A lot. You have to satisfy all of them, right? Why? Oh, somebody give him microphone, by the way. Yeah.
Of course,
To get the
grades, obviously.
To get the degree, you have to satisfy them. And then all your friends. Why do you have to satisfy them?
Or just to maintain a social relationship.
Social relationship,
obviously
because you need it.
Yes, then obviously my parents, my siblings, and obviously extended family. So
exactly, the animals, even trees, like you have to satisfy them, otherwise they will die, and you need their fruits, so on and so forth. The animals, right? You need meat, the milk, whatever. All of them you have to satisfy. If he's not one, it means all these things are your gods that you have to worship, because everything for itself, like when we study La ilaha illallah, that was our conclusion, right? Either he is only God or everything else are gods. So if he is not one, you have to beg for everything in your life, all these different things in your life. But if he is one, that means there is only one that you need to ask for. And when you study like what type of one he is, as we mentioned, this comprehensive knowledge, comprehensive mercy, and so on and so forth, you realize that you don't even have to satisfy him in the sense that you have to satisfy Ibrahim, for instance, right? So it's a merciful one that you can ask for all your needs. And to me, this is a big game changer. Like if he is not one, my life is miserable. But if he is one, my life is in safe hands.
Just as since we have students here, as a rule of thumb, if you are going for a grad school, try to have a single advisor. Like if you do a research which is at the intersection of 2 advisors, then you are in the mercy of 2 bosses, which doubles the stress, doubles the job, doubles everything. And we are just talking about having 2 advisors for a graduate student. Just something regular. So having 2 bosses, 2 kings and whatnot. Now, imagine, as now we're kind of saying, we are having so many bosses that we are in the mercy of. So I guess this is how the outcome of one, the boss being one, makes life easier. Why he is boss, this and that, we discussed it as the justification part. But as a more general message of what is the relevance of oneness of the creator to me, so graduate student rule of thumb helps us.
I had 2 advisors when I started my postdoc, not graduate, but postdoc, and it was difficult. Yeah. It was difficult for them because they had to fight for me, But yeah, jokes aside, I think the relevance, so we have to keep such questions in mind all the time. So we have to thank Kadir for that. If we are studying this text or any text, religious or not, just because we think, like, I am Muslim, so I'm supposed to study it, I'm supposed to learn it, then you lost the point. The revelation does not come because some people needs to memorize it or understands it, even understanding. Revelation comes to save humanity, save from the misery. Because without revelation, the life we live is a miserable life. Don't be fooled with, what we see outside, that, people say, oh, we can build a society ourselves without even religion and so on and so forth. Everything good about the humanity came from revelation already. Every good part in our lives came from the revelation. So this is kind of like a historical argument. So we don't have to study the truthness of that. But within the moment, just look at our lives, look at your lives, your specific life, not lives, not our, but yours, the singular form. And you will realize that he is one, it's a savior for you. Otherwise, you have to strategize against everyone, all these differences. And it will change constantly. Like once you are done with your undergrad, life will be completely different type of people you will deal. So the strategies that you, the designed, executed during your undergrad will not work when you started your graduate school. Did they work, Zarin, for you? Life was different, right? The expectations were different. People were different. But if he is one, nothing is changing. It's the same, the merciful scenario of the same director. Just different, the episodes. Okay, since everybody now an expert of Wahdahu, let's start with, you have some doubts? Let's start with the third phrase. He has no partner. Who wants to read it for us? Atik, you said? Okay. The microphone, please. I love when friends betray each other. Go ahead, please.
All right, third phrase. He has no partner. Just as in his divinity and in his sovereignty, God has no partner. He is one and cannot be many. So too, he has no partner in his dominicality and in his actions and in his creating.
Do you mind? Sorry for the interruption, but it would be probably much, more understandable if we replace a few English words with the original Arabics.
Oh,
Because people are, I'm sure, familiar with. So when he says, just as in his divinity and his sovereignty, God has no partner. He says, just like in his uluhiyyah, like ilah. As a ilah, he has no partner. The first part of the sentence. He says he is one and cannot be many in this aspect. As a ilah, right? He has no partner, he is one. So too, just like this, he has no partner in his dominicality, in his rububiyyah, Rabb. As a Rabb, also he has no partner. Okay? We will study, inshallah. So far, he says, we studied that as a ilah, let's say as a creator, he has no partner. Okay? So far, we studied that. We studied, wherever you look, whatever aspect of things you will look, you will see that it's coming from the same source. Okay? That he's being one, wahdahu, with respect to his being an ilah. Now he says, with this, he has no partner. We now will study that he is one in his rububiyyah, he is being Rabb. Okay? So when you see that dominicality and his actions, think about his being Rabb. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So, I'll start from the beginning. just as in his divinity or his godhood and in his sovereignty, maybe his kingship, God has no partner. He is one and cannot be many. So too, he has no partner in his dominicality. Again, maybe referring to kingship, and in his actions and in his creating. It sometimes happened that a monarch is one, having no partner in his sovereignty, but in the execution of his affairs, his officials act as his partners. They prevent everyone from entering his presence, saying, "Apply to us." However, God Almighty, the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, has no partner in his sovereignty, just as he has no need for partners or helpers in the execution of his dominicality. If it were not for his command and will, his strength and power, not a single thing could interfere with another. Everyone can have recourse to him directly. Since he has no partner or helper, no one seeking recourse can be told, "Stop." It is forbidden to enter his presence. This phrase, therefore, delivers the following joyful announcement to the human spirit. The human spirit, which has attained to faith, may, without let or hindrance, opposition or interference in any state, for any wish, at any time and in any place, enter the presence of the all-beauteous and glorious one, the one of power and perfection, who is the pre-eternal and post-eternal owner of the treasuries of mercy, the treasuries of bliss, and may present its needs. Discovering his mercy and relying on his power, it will find perfect ease and happiness.
Thank you. So, any initial thoughts? What is your name, by the way, if you don't mind? Afra. Nice to meet you, Afra. Any initial thoughts would you like to share? You don't have to. No, okay. Anyone from this side? Ilgam, would you like to share? You are ready. Like he was like holding his hands. Okay, ask me, ask me. Alhamdulillah.
It didn't remind, but it brought in mind that the idea of shaitan. So yes, we think as him as the opposite, but he doesn't even have that power. He's not even that authority. He leads people to astray with some of his traps, we may say, but still he's not an equal force against Allah. So this, I mean, this sharika, yes, we're focusing on the partner, but it's also, there is no openness. So what we do to Allah is not decreasing from what we can do to the other one. So only it comes to the first two, La ilaha illallah wahda. So and also not having any other option is increasing the power of the first two.
I see. So that's interesting. You start with Shaitan, the Satan. So in certain ideologies, like Star Wars, for instance, there's always this fight between good and evil, as if they, they are same and so on. And this is just, I would say, a simplistic, a binary division. And in our life, in our practical lives, we have more divisions, as if things, they fight each other, and clash of forces, we say, right? The strong one wins and so on. So we have these, the ideologies in our minds, which is just the opposite of he has no partner, like Sharika. But before going to this extreme case of, let's say, Shaitan, just within the good things, how this text applies, he has no partner, is talking about again, we are starting from the relevance, how it is relevant to us. And the author is saying that everyone can have recourse to him directly. Why this is important? What does it mean? Zarar first, and then Zerrin, inshallah. The microphone, please. Yeah.
Before he goes, could you tell me what it means to be Rab? Like really quickly, could you summarize?
Sustainer, maintains.
So, you want to say?
My sustainer maintains everything.
Yes, well, go ahead, please. You start, and then we can add.
I was just answering what Rab is, but
Okay.
what I want to say was like the fact that he has no partner, especially the line that where it's talking about how monarchs have people who help them carry out staying by saying for apply to us first, like I think intuitively it makes more sense for God to not have partners. For example, like ask anybody here in this room what's their idea of a good king would be. Someone who appoints, as in like, let's just say viceroys to go out to certain people and then talk to their people, or who calls everyone to courts and listen to everyone, like rich, poor, ill, fit, everyone. So I think everyone would agree that the better king is the one who listens to everyone themselves, instead of appointing people. And then bouncing off of what Quran says and, like fujura wa taqwaha, like this sounds better to me. My intuition wants to accept this as an idea of God having no partners, because like, why should I have an indirect access to God, but that person, for example, who's saying applies to me, have a direct access to God? Because I am an equal creation as he is, which is why it should be important that he should have no partners. I should have a direct access to him. It's just like makes more intuitive sense.
Okay, Jazakallah. Before going to you, so going with the question of Rab, we can, I would say, translate or define it in different ways within different contexts. One is, as Zarar said, the sustainer. And the core of sustainer, it's this sustaining, like continuation, because the sustainer means continuously giving something, right? It's not like creator. The word creator means it sounds like it happens once. But when we say sustainer, it's more about the continuation, right? So you give rise something and then it can or cannot sustain itself. And when we say Rab, it means he is sustaining us continuously. That's one aspect. Another aspect, which looking at our personally, it also means that the one who taking care of. So for instance, the same word would be used for, what is the English for reis, like evin reisi, for instance, Yusuf? Lord, maybe landlord. Yeah, exactly, landlord. Landlord meaning the one who taking care of the apartment when you need, for instance, right? So the Rab means Lord, just like the landlord. So for instance, the one who is taking care of the household in terms of the finances and so on, in Arabic would called Rab. Okay, so you can use it for human beings as well. In our house, for instance, let's say my wife is the Rab of the house, Rabbul Bayt. Okay, so that's another part, the taking care of. And when we say he's our Rab, it means he's taking care of us, like feeding us, making us grow, making our hair white when it is time, making us stronger or weaker, taking care of us all the time. Another aspect of the Rab is giving shape and changing it, right, in a proper way. So, and then taking you from one place to another place, leading you. So it's like a perfect professor, perfect educator, teaching you something, and then putting you in another context, teaching you another thing. So all these different contexts, like the different type of definitions will come within different contexts. Here, my understanding, the emphasis is on one, the continuity. Also, he's taking care of everything, including even tiny, minute things. That's the emphasis as I can see it. Once I was talking to a person, and she was saying that, like believing in a supernatural thing, in our context, ilah, as a creator, it's easy. Like I can understand, yeah, maybe somebody created this universe or created me, decided, let's say the gender of the child or not. Do you really think like there's a God who's taking care of everything constantly? Like he wouldn't have, that much time, she said, right? So that's the difference between ilah and Rab. The one who's taking care of everything in your life constantly is Rab. And here the author says, accepting his as one, accepting wahdat of him from the ilah perspective is one thing. But accepting his oneness from Rab perspective is something else. And it is so important for you, he says. Why? So let's start from why. Why it is important? Why believing in a Rab and Rab being one is so important? With this question, let's go to Zarin, inshallah.
Yeah, so I also wanted to highlight sort of that importance of like, I guess just to summarize again, like we wouldn't intuitively think that there's like an equal to our creator, so an equal to the ilah aspect, but like, so like this analogy here, so a monarch can be one and like have no partner, but in the execution of his affairs, his officials act as his partners. They prevent everyone from entering his presence, saying apply to us. And I think that's like an important point, because like we can, I think I was thinking of some examples we made, I think when we were discussing the first phrase where you can think like, yes, God created everything and it's by his design, but in the moment of something, it's kind of hard to see it that way. One example was, for example, taking medicine. You can say that, yes, God made it possible for this medicine to be created, for everything, all the chemicals and everything to come together into this pill. But when you actually take the medicine, I feel like the first instinct is to be like, oh, this medicine is going to heal me, instead of, oh, my creator is going to heal me. Or my creator is going to heal me through this medicine, which gives the medicine some kind of, it's the official in this example that's executing sort of the act of healing instead of the creator. And that's like almost saying, oh, you don't have to think about Allah in this case. I'm the medicine and I'm going to cure you. And I think another example that Yusuf gave was like just the simple act of turning on a light. So again, you can think like all the components are from God, but when you like turn on the switch, I think the more instinctual reaction is to be like, I'm going to turn on this switch, and like the flow of current is going to be what's turning on the light. So it's like you were saying, it's like thinking of ilah and Rab are like two different things. Like in the moment, I don't think it's that, especially in this day and age with like science and everything, it's not really intuitive to be like to say in every moment that my Rab is like sustaining this process right now.
This sentence, thank you. The sentence, everyone can have recourse to him directly. Like to me, this is the, at the heart, the core of the text. Just like you said, in the moment, yes, God created everything, but I am sick. Right now, I'm sick. Like, don't waste my time with religious talks. right? I am sick. Whom am I going to have recourse to? That's my question. And the answer is usually what? Doctor, medicine, family friend, or like your parents. Oh, mommy, I'm so sick, right? That's what I do. So, I mean, I cannot do it now because she's not here, but in Turkey, I would do that if she was here. Or, you know, the someone you think very knowledgeable and so on and so forth. These are the ones that we have recourse, as if they will save us. And then when, let's say, we take a medicine, we go to doctor, we feel better. If we are not that lost, we say, Alhamdulillah. We remember then. But within the moment, usually God is not there. Even that, you know, this sense, this experience that we have, it already an evidence that Ilah and Rab is the two different things. Right? Even if you are convinced that God creates everything, within the moment, when you have recourse to something else, it means your Rab is different. Again, why this is important? Okay, going back to the original question, why it is important for us and it is relevant for us that La Sharika lah, he has no partner. Why this is relevant? I mean, look at our system, for instance. We all know that the US, the country, is ruled by a single person, right? The president, Joe Biden. But when we have a problem, we don't go to Joe Biden. Like I go to the driver, what is it called? The DMD, what is it called? Like what is?
Department of Motor Vehicle.
Okay, yeah, Department of Motor Vehicle. Problem vehicles, maybe. Anyway, DMV. We go DMV and everything is fine. Like I don't need to go to Joe Biden. I don't have this need. If I'm sick, I go to, you know, a doctor assigned by Ministry of Health, right? This is my, let's say, the address, like this is what I need. I don't want to go to Joe Biden at all, right? I mean, he would probably make me more sick, right? So in our life, like, do we really need La Sharika lah? Is it really necessary? Is it really relevant to us? Please, yeah.
So in terms of like why we need to know that God has no partner in like being a Rabb specifically, I was just thinking about how like I need to know that the one who created me is also the one who is sustaining me, because the one who created me for a purpose. And now I need that same one because he's the one who knows me and knows my life and knows what purpose I'm going to serve. So he knows my start to end. So I needed to be that one God who is also sustaining me and guiding me towards that purpose. So that's one thing, but also like, so we were talking today about how like we see nature and we're very quick to be like, oh, you know, like this is happening because of nature, like rain happens because it's just natural, you know, and that doesn't really mean anything. And I was thinking about how like actually when we study like statistics, we learn that correlation does not equal causation, you know. So we see these things and it's like correlated. I drink water and all of a sudden I'm not thirsty, and everybody accepts that as, oh, you know, it's water that is quenching your thirst. But the thing is, those two are correlated, but that doesn't necessarily mean that water is the cause of my quenching of my thirst. And we do have this need to know our creator, because I feel like, you know, God creates this curiosity within us to know the purpose of our life, to know who our Lord is, to know what we're doing here. And in order for us, because we see on an everyday basis that we see, quote unquote, multiple things sustaining us. So we need air, we need water. And in order for us to not be lost, and in order for us to not like live in delusion of what is truly sustaining us, we need to know that there is the one behind all of these multiple things. So, yeah.
Assalamualaikum. Don't think I can hear.
So,
I was muted, by the way.
uh,
I was muted, I guess. Anyway,
so
You
I
want
don't
to-
understand what's the difference between wahdahu and la sharika lah. Like how like he is one and he has no partners. Why are these two statements different? If I say you're alone in your room and if I say you don't have there's no one else other than you in the room, like why are these two statements different?
so I assume you're not asking from like an Arabic perspective, and
I think both. Like
so I guess the good example is given here. I will repeat what author said, and then we can expand other questions. So when you think, for instance, that there's a king or a president of a country, he is one, right? So there's only one king. So you can say that he is one. But when we say la sharika lah, like, do you have the word shirkat, for instance, in your language?
sharikat, like
Yeah,
companies.
company, exactly. Yeah. So it is called shirkat because to run it, even if you have a single CEO, let's say, to run shirkat, the company, you need multiple entities. Otherwise, it will not run. Just one person cannot run the company. Even he is just one CEO, he has to distribute some of his power. He is the source of the power, right?
Delegate us.
But he has to distribute it to other entities, other partners in the shirkat, the company. Otherwise, he cannot, they have time, like my friend said, to run every instance of the things. He is the source of the power. He has the money, let's say, but he has to hire people so that these people will do these minute things on behalf of him, right? So wahdahu refers that there's only one owner. There's only one source. So the money coming from him, power coming from him. So for instance, an employee, for instance, without his, let's say, the authority, using his authority, the CEO's authority, cannot order another employee to do something. Just a regular person on the street cannot come to company and say that you should do it this way. He cannot, right? But if he has authority from the CEO, then he can. So authority is still coming from him. He is the one who assigns these authorities, still wahdahu. But in running things, he has partners. So shirkat or shirk, like sharik, partner. So that's the difference. Like he is the source of everything, wahdahu. When using this knowledge, power, authority, and so on, he's not distributing it to anyone, but he's using it directly. This is la sharika lah. I'm not sure if it is clear or not. Okay. So he says in his company, would now the next, after that will come, he has the dominion. Lahul mulk. Now we will ask the same question, like we already said, wahdahu, and then la sharika. Now, why we are studying lahul mulk? Things will become even deeper and more interesting there. But anyway, from wahdahu and la sharika, this is how I understand the difference. Yes, he is the source, and he is using whatever, the knowledge or power he has directly, not distributing to anyone. Exactly. There's no delegation. So what is the opposite? We say this universe was created by him and he's the only creator. And then he distributed some power to the entities, everything. Like he gave, let's say, the power of like a burning to fire. And now fire burns, we say. So this is the opposite of it. So when I say fire burns, I don't think multiple creators. I still think that there's one creator, but he delegated burning thing to fire. So fire burns, I say.
By itself.
Yes, by itself. But la sharika means no. If there's an action burning, he is burning. There is no delegation. But that's the difference.
So just a very tiny comment. So in general, what's happening here is there are 11 different phrases. They are talking about the 11 different aspects of Tawheed in a sense. But that means in our understanding, there are various ways where this shirk, this ascribing partners can creep in. So this is why at the end of the day, it is La ilaha illallah. This should summarize everything. But in our perception, there are different colors, different shades of partnership. This is why those details are being mentioned. So it's not only one king, but in action, in rulership, in day-to-day actions, day-to-day activities, who is the agent, who is the doer in there? And just one tiny addition, maybe for the fire, it's another thing, but if you're raised up in a more religious environment, you would say, oh yes, such and such angel does this job. God appointed the angel and now the angel is doing the job, sort of a thing. All different shades of ascribing partners are out there. So La Sharika La in here, when it comes to, as mentioned, Rububiyyah, maintaining, he is the one who ongoingly maintains everything.
Oh. Before you ask your question, can you hear us now, Suhail? I just seen your comment. I apologize, but can you hear us now? I forgot to turn on my microphone for a moment. I know that. Maybe you wrote this comment at that moment.
Can hear you.
Abdurrahman, can you? Oh, just a second. I cannot hear you, Abdurrahman. I have to change something. Just give me a second. Can you speak now?
We can hear you.
I still cannot hear.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Just sorry, I mistakenly changed the microphone, not the speaker. Okay. So can you hear me now? I made a lot of changes. I apologize. Somebody speak, please.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, Jazakallah. Okay, now everything is fine. So wait a second. Did Yusuf just said angels don't do things? Like, did you say angels don't do things, Yusuf? Anyway, let's go with your question, inshallah. Somebody, oh, you went, okay.
I have a question for that. How do you negate that?
How do you negate what?
That, like, for example, angels are not doing anything. Like, for example, Allah has appointed angels, and there is this line that, however, God Almighty, the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, has no partner in his sovereignty, just as he has no need for partners or helpers. But when you think of angels, it feels like they're helpers. For example, as Yusuf was telling us, the water is an angel, and all of those things that are here are angels. It kind of feels like they're helping in the execution of everything. So how do you negate that?
How do you negate? Okay, I understand. Now I understand. You want to say something? Please go ahead.
So you know how for death we need reasons in this world, and Azrael is saying that Allah, if I take people's lives, they will hate me. Allah says I will create reasons for people to not hate you. And also when we think about angels, like humans are a creation and angels are a creation too. I mean, humans are created for a purpose and angels are created for a purpose, and angels' purposes are doing things which Allah ordered them to do, but Allah doesn't need them, but Allah uses them as a, from my perspective, I'm not saying this is like the exact thing. Allah is using them as a way to make us understand better about how the things are being sustained and maintained, and how what's their role and what other creations there are.
No, that I understand, but the thing is like the way you're saying is there's angels, then there's us. I'm
Mhm.
saying like in this phrase, it's directly to us, like it's us and then directly to Allah. There's no like angel in between. How do you think about that?
So when we think about angels, they're not creatures who have their own will, or they're not just like devices, which is like telephone that enables us to communicate with Allah. But Allah knows everything, not through angels, but Allah knows everything. But angels are there to also worship Allah, praise Allah, and also be slaves of Allah. Like they obey the rules and orders of Allah. So it's not like they're not needed. Nothing is needed for Allah, but it's not like they're not needed for us, our creation, but it's like they exist because as we are, Allah wants to create them and created them, and they're worshiping Allah, they're praising Allah 24/7. Maybe they don't have time, but like per se.
So let me interfere. So when we study something, we have to think about the level of the person who has the least knowledge, right? Otherwise, at least one people wouldn't understand. In our case, this is me. I have the least knowledge about the angels. So I have to say that let's not talk about angels for now, okay? Because when we talk about the angels, my mind goes, awkward. I say, what angels we're talking about? I don't know any angels and so on, right? So let's not talk about that. Let's talk about things that we can see in front of us, that we can, let's say, easily contemplate. And so going back to your question, I will take it as, but in our life, we see that there are intermediaries like medicine, fire, water, right? How are we going to understand this text while this is the reality? Would the same question, like, would it be okay with you if we take your question into this way? Okay.
Similar thing.
Yeah, exactly. So the way author studies it, we said it before, but I guess repetition is always good, especially for people like myself. So author never studies it from starting from the conclusion, which is there's a God creating things and then do this, do that. Does he need this? Does he need that? And so on. This is something I cannot even understand. Like Fahim would tell me that the God doesn't need this, God doesn't need that. And I would just pretend as if I understand how God needs something or he doesn't need something. I would say, oh yeah, I'm Muslim, he is Muslim, so it's better not to say anything and say that, yes, he doesn't need anything. My mind doesn't understand whether God needs something or not. So this is kind of like a speculative way. In the best sense, it is, let's say, religious way of talking, because we memorized it, now we are repeating it. So author takes from the other direction, says, let's look at things. You think there are some intermediaries, right? You think fire can burn or water can quench my thirst and so on. And within the moment, when I'm thirsty, I need water. This is how you feel, right? Author will say, let's look at it. Whether really water can rule my quench or not. Whether it makes sense to go to water and ask water to quench my thirst or not. So we will start from there. And as we do with every phrase, we first study relevance, whether this phrase is relevant to us or not. Even understanding it does it has any value, or are we just reading a religious text? So that's the first part. Now we are studying this first part, its relevance. Next, probably next week, or maybe if we have time today, we will study the other part, which is your question, but how we really see it in our life, that he has no partners. We will study this, inshallah, next. For now, we are trying to understand that understanding this is relevant to us. We need this. Is it clear? Okay. Alhamdulillah. Any objections? Maybe it doesn't make sense. Oh, sorry. Why do we need no partner? Exactly. So that's the question. Somebody helps her. Let's read the text and then study it, inshallah. Just as in his divinity and his sovereignty, God has no partner, he is one and cannot be many. So too, he has no partner in his dominicality and his actions and in his creating. So we studied that part, like we studied what it means. It sometimes happens that a monarch is one, having no partner in his sovereignty, but in the execution of his affairs, his officials act as his partners. They prevent everyone from entering his presence, saying, apply to us. Now comes the answer. So in our lives, it is as if there are a lot of things telling us, if you want to be happy, you have to apply to us. If you want to be successful, you have to apply to us. If you want to be healthy, you have to apply to us. Would you agree with that? This is how we see the life most of the time.
If you want to be happy, yes. I mean, you need to, of course, believe in God, but without having a degree, I mean, or you would like to, as Birkan was giving that example, you would think that your parents should somebody should buy a house. So Birkan's friend was saying him that
They wouldn't know the example, so yeah.
okay. So saying that, oh Birkan, pray that God gives me money so that I can buy a house to my parents. And Birkan was telling him that, why don't you ask directly God to give them a house? Why are you saying that God give you money and then you will buy them a house?
And why not you are praying and I'm praying?
So but his response was, well, come on. I mean, how else would they be able to buy a house? Like, house doesn't come from the sky, of course.
They don't work.
They don't work. So I need to be rich. I get the money and then I'll buy them a house. So every time there's these sort of intermediaries in our perception to some sort of satisfaction. We say, yes, of course, satisfaction is by finding God. But I mean, if you're not earning $10,000 per month or something like this, and if you don't earn 6 digits per year, it's not going to be a satisfactory life. These sort of intermediaries come into between us and the Creator. So it's not always necessarily something too technical. We lovingly put them as intermediaries in our lives.
By the way, there's nothing wrong in praying for someone else. You should pray for someone else. But within this context, as an example, we were questioning why he asked me to pray. Otherwise, you should pray for your friends. So this is the life we live. I guess we agree on that. And it's as if we have to apply to all these things. Just like this example. Yes, there is God. We pray to God. But for my parents to have a house, they have to apply me. Because I will give them a house. They cannot, get the house by themselves. Directly from God. They cannot, we believe. And I have to apply to my boss to get the money, because I cannot get the money directly from God, we believe. So to get a house, there are at least 2-3 intermediaries right now. And if we think about it, it will become 30, 300, 3,000 easily. If it were not for his command and will, his strength and power, not a single thing could interfere with another. He says, in reality, that part we will study, inshallah. This is the question of Qadir. We will study that things cannot interfere with each other, actually. With every action, you have to see, you will see, not you have to, but within every action, if you look at it carefully, you will see his power and his strength. You will realize that nothing interferes with anything else. Everyone can have recourse to him directly. So he says the reality is just the opposite to how you see. You don't have to apply to anyone. If you need something, the only one that you have to ask is him, he says. So I guess the relevance becoming clearer, right? Since he has no partner or helper, no one seeking recourse can be told, stop, it is forbidden to enter his presence. So what is the, let's say, practicality of this in our life? I want to be, let's say, have a purposeful life, I say, okay? And then my parents come and said, wait a second, if you want to have a purposeful life, you have to satisfy us. They say, no, first you have to apply us. Stop there. And then my boss comes, says, or my professor comes, you have to apply to me as well. For a purposeful life, you need your degree. And without satisfying my classroom, my class, whatever, you cannot have your purposeful life. So things will start interfering, at least make these claims. This phrase, therefore, he says, La Sharika lah, delivers the following joyful announcement to the human spirit which has attained to faith may, without let or hindrance, without anyone interfering or hindering, opposition or interference in any state, for any wish, at any time, and in any place, enter the presence of the all-beauteous and glorious one. So what it means, again, from our perspective, it means if you reach this level of tawheed, Yusuf was saying that this is different aspects of the tawheed, I think you can take them as a kind of like a levels of tawheed as well. You start with, oh, there must be one creator. There must be a creator other than this, the creation itself. And the creator must be one. And this creator doing everything in my life as well, directly. And then the mulk, the dominion for him as well. So it's like a levels of tawheed. When you reach this level of tawheed, la sharika lah, when you walk with peace and ease. Nothing can interfere with you. You know that whatever happens comes from him. If you want to reach a target, if he allows, nothing can prevent you. That's your understanding now. So that's the relevance, at least to me. That is ease and peace when you walk. There are no stones on the road that will make your walk uncomfortable.
And I guess also the reverse. If I cannot reach where I want to reach, I will know that my creator just keeps me where I am.
So yeah, it's not because of my friend. I would reach this destination, I would get this degree, but because of Zarar, he kept doing these jokes in the classroom. I couldn't listen to the professor, it was his fault. As Yusuf said, no, it would be, no, my creator, he puts me there. keeps me here.
Actually, this is a beautiful occasion of talking about qadar as well. Like, how do we understand qadar? Talking about qadar becomes meaningful to the extent that I realize he is Rabb and there's no partner in his rububiyyah. Because if you think about creator as just created once upon a time sort of a thing, then yeah, Birkan's will is interfering with my will, and then things are just crossing and all those potential probabilities, possibilities. And out of that, yes, I am now failing because Zara made those weird jokes in the class. I mean, how are we going to talk about qadar in this case? So to the extent that I start and understand that everything is being maintained, then maybe I can get closer to understand what qadar means. Because before even touching my choices, rububiyyah being everywhere means, as Quran puts it actually, there is no single leaf which fall that's out of his knowledge. It's a very beautiful verse. It's talking about the detail of, because generally we would just say, I mean, it's wind comes and it takes, I don't know, millions of leaves fall down because of that wind. It's just so random, so brute force sort of a thing. But no, that level of rububiyyah, everything is being maintained by him. And if I understand this to the level that I am convinced about that, my attitude changes. This is the relevance part of it, right? My attitude changes because I am in a certain condition. And in that condition, my sustainer is not distant to me. Like if it's only La ilaha illallah, in terms of kingship and whatnot, if I stop there and do not pay attention to this detail, my king, my creator is so distant to me. But when I, as hadith, in the example of hadith, if my shoelace gets untied, to the extent that I'm aware that he is Rabb and he doesn't have a partner in his rububiyyah, then I wouldn't hesitate to say that, oh, the one who untied my shoelace, just tie my shoelace or save me from that. Like that sort of a conversation, I can comfortably do it right now. Because I'm not ascribing this shoelace being untied to saying that, oh, it is like, what's that, malfunction or like they bad material sort of a thing. Whatever that is, I know that my creator gives me that creation, makes me in that creation right now. I can have a conversation with my creator. That conversation portion is important here. Because loneliness is, especially in this day and age, everywhere. What that text is suggesting is you can be in constant communication with your creator comfortably. It's not like you're going nuts. No, justifiably and comfortably. You can be in one-on-one conversation with your creator just because it is the one acting everywhere. This is the first and foremost relevance of La Sharika Lah. We can talk about, well, but still, if I want to get a degree, I need to enroll to the university and this and that and whatnot, like this other aspect of it, which is a different flavor of what dua means, how many different types of duas out there. Is dua only opening your hands and asking from your creator? Is studying for a class not another type of dua? But as long as we understand all these, then you would say, even when you are studying for an exam, to the extent that I am conscious, I can even take this as a conversation with my creator. But these are all how I approach them. And I guess the very summary version for this paragraph would be, you can live the life as if you are in constant conversation with your creator to the extent that you understand La Sharika Lah, meaning he doesn't have a partner in his running or maintaining the affairs, relationships. Zadar has a question. So I can
turn on the microphone, please.
So in light of the conversation that we just had, how do I reconcile this concept of La Sharika Lahu with the concept of prophethood? And like, Quran didn't come to me, like.
Oh, could you repeat the question?
Like-
Sorry, I was reading
Okay. So in light of the conversation that we just had, like Brother Yusuf gave a very beautiful summary. How do I reconcile that with the concept of prophethood? Because like Quran didn't come to me, it came through the Prophet. And then obviously, how do I read the verse Atiullah wa atiur Rasulul ulil amri minkum? Because that to me, at least some level, gives an idea of, like there is a sharik. But two in this case. Atiullah wa atiur Rasulul ulil amri minkum. So it's like the verse didn't just end at Atiullah. It's like, and follow this and follow this. So it's like, I'm having trouble understanding the concept of prophethood now. Like obey Allah, obey the messenger, obey those charged with authority among you.
So you mean you can understand how and why you are drinking water when you are thirsty, but you have difficulty with prophethood? Is that okay? So
I think that still seems sort of like an external concept to me.
which one external?
Prophethood,
Okay.
or at least coming of guidance. And like even going back to Kadir's question, why was Hazrat Jibreel needed to bring the Quran? Why was,
Again, like you starting from the other direction, like you talking about the Jibreel as if you know what you are talking about. So let's start from the other perspective and say that, do I need a prophet? Do I receive, let's say, my ideas and thoughts, the feelings in one way or another? Let's stick to the things that I can understand. I'm sure you can understand when you say Jibreel alayhi salam and so on. I have difficulty, so just for sake of my reasoning. You want to say something? Oh.
You can just repeat the question that you asked. Like, in order to get to know the Creator as merciful, how do you know the Creator as merciful? Rain, for example. Would you say that rain is a partner of the Creator because it's an intermediary, if you take it this way? Messenger is also another water droplet, if you would like, if you take my analogy, because this is what Birkan was saying, right? So the Creator is there, then there's water droplet, and now you're here. So you get to know that the Creator is merciful because that water droplets are in a very merciful way coming down. So you are in need of rain to get to know. There's one way, this one medium, if you like, with which you get to know the Creator. When it comes to prophet and prophethood, it's another intermediary, or means, if you like, through which the Creator is manifesting to you.
So when we talk about needs, why we need a prophet, like why so we usually ask these from the other forbidden perspective, like we say why God needs prophet, why God needs rain. The proper answer, like a proper question, is why I need rain, or do I need rain? Do I need prophet? So we can answer this question. And as Yusuf was saying, it seems in my reality, this is like we only question reality. We can only talk about reality, the existence. We cannot speculate the alternatives, counterfactuals, right?
Wouldn't it have been?
Yeah. The philosopher, some group of philosophers, not all of them, they love counterfactuals. But for some, like people like us, people who reason, we only reason through existence. I say the rain is there, I am here, and when I interact with the rain, I learn this, I say. Then the question is, why do I need rain? The answer is to learn about this, to learn about mercy, for instance. Why do I need to go to university? To learn about certain topics. But would it be possible, learning these topics this way or that way? I have no idea. This is how I learn. So this is the existence. And within this existence, I need revelation. I need prophet. Why? Because only through prophet, I can understand this revelation, what it means in a human form, for instance. This is my reality. So then question is, or the same way, why I need water? Because only through water, I know that I am sustained. So then the question is water then an intermediary for the creator? Now I ask this question. And here, according to this text, no, it's not. But why I have water? I already answered that. To learn about this. Why creation is this way or that way? This is something I cannot speculate. I only know what it is. So that's the reason I always, I know sometimes when I repeat that, oh, no, don't start from there. It sounds a little bit, annoying, as if I'm just repeating the same thing again and again. But this is really important. Otherwise, it wouldn't lead us anywhere. But if we start from the existence, the answers will be very easy.
Still, there's some cloud and doubt there. So I guess the question in there is, why does the creator did not directly speak to me? I guess this is being the sort of the question over there. The equivalent of that would be, why does the creator not make me know him as merciful without rain in between? Which means, why is there existence in the first place? Why do I not know the creator without the existence? Because the whole existence is the intermediary in this case, right? Then how are you going to even answer that question? Like, because by that question, you are knocking off the existence itself. So what now boils down to is the existence being a partner or anything? No. The existence in here is just the manifestation through which I get to know the creator, because I do not see the creator, but I get to conclude about the creator through existence. This is how I get to know the creator. So it's not about any partnership or anything of that sort is now being mentioned in here. The emphasis in here about partnership when it comes to doing actions is because this is something that within the existence that I see, things are being done, changing. I start imagining some agency for those intermediaries as some, let's say, sun is rising, or I say, it rises because Earth is rotating, so on and so forth. So that sort of things. In there, now we are talking about this la sharika lah. So this is the maintaining aspect of it. The question that you are asking, or we are now discussing, is it's now taking to a different level in terms of how I get to know the creator through existence. But this is just the existence of things. Through the existence, I get to know something. Is the mere existence of things being a partner of God's existence? It's just a totally different conversation, and it's going into a sort of a not so meaningful way, because now I am starting to negate where I start from. Like, the existence is already my, if you like, initially almost, I would say, only thing that is at my hand to get to the creator. So if I start denying that or saying that, well, there is some issue with this, then how am I even going to know the source of existence of this thing itself?
When Moses alayhi salam asked creator to, show his, let's say, his face or existence, the answer is, look at this mountain. So we usually take it as, there's that something happened and so on, like there was maybe a lighting, I don't know. And then mountain just boils down and like, crumbles and so on. This is one thing. I'm not denying this miracle. But what this tells us is that Creator says, you are a created being. You are created in this physical world. And the only way to know me, to see me, is looking at the mountain. The created things within the universe. That's the only thing that you have access to. Moses alayhi salam looks at the mountain, and there he sees nothing but the name of the creator being manifested. So mountain crumbles, meaning there's no mountain anymore there, but only manifestation of the creator. And he says, yeah, now I understand. It's not a mountain, it's your manifestation. And this is the only way we know of creator. We are created beings. This is the existence. The rest, again, would be speculation, counterfactuals. So in the ayah, obey me, obey prophet. It means the same thing. You can obey me only through obeying a prophet. This is how you are created. You have to obey the manifestation of my order in this physical world, which is the prophet and his Sharia. Without his Sharia, without prophet, we cannot even imagine what it means to obeying God. God says, if you love me, obey or ittaba to my prophet. The same thing. Loving God by itself as a, the abstract thing doesn't mean anything to us. And Creator says, loving God for a physical being like you, a human being, equivalent to following the prophet. This is what it means for a human being to love God. Without obeying prophet, without following his rulings and so on, without loving prophet. If you love God, follow me or love me. Without loving prophet, there's nothing to talk about. Like, I love the creator as an, the abstract entity. What do you mean? Quran says, what are you talking about? What do you mean loving God? For a physical being like you, a human being, that needs to touch, I don't know, the hear, see, whatever. This is your existence. Loving God means following the manifestation of his order, which is the prophet. Don't talk about this, what is it? Nonsense ideologies and so on. Like, I love the creator, I have this infinite, the love towards the source of the creation and so on. What are you talking about, Quran says? Are you following the prophet or not? Are you looking at the mountain or not? This is how you see creator. Don't speculate otherwise, Quran says. This is how I understand that list.
It's trying to create a curriculum or syllabus for each person, so that, yes, for some period of time they can think correctly, but maybe after some point they can go to different ideology, as you said. So having the Quran and Prophet Sunnah, they're important to always maintain the same level of iman and worshiping. So sometimes people feel motivated towards worshiping Allah, but sometimes they say, oh, maybe Hasha, Allah doesn't exist, so I don't have to worship. But the having Prophet and Quran always maintains that level. So I just want to clarify this, because when you were saying, don't think about how you love Allah, the God, don't speculate any ideologies like that. I was questioning what does he mean, but at the end I understood when you meant like there is Quran, there is a way to worship Allah. Don't try to find any other ways. Don't say, if I sit on my feet for 10 hours, I will be worshiping Allah. Just do what the Prophet said, because it's the order of Allah. And Allah wants you to do that, not to sit on your feet for 10 hours. So I just want to clarify. I'm not going to
say a good practical example I should share. Thank you. We are out of time. We have to stop, but I know you have very important concluding remarks that you have to share. It's urging, like it's not staying there inside. So let's stop, like conclude with your concluding remarks. I think, do you have one forcing you to speak? I have to share it. No? Okay. What about you? Sarah?
Okay, concluding remarks from the third phrase, he has no partner. So I would say what I understood from what we talked about and from reading this paragraph basically today. First of all, there was kind of a distinction between Ilah and Rab, between divinity or divine, the divine, God, and his dominicality. So the first thing was, we studied before, he is one. And what does it mean he is one? Like, if you imagine a king, so there's only one king, there's only one source of power, there's only one source of the knowledge. And then when it comes to he has no partners, it means he has the power, he has the knowledge, he has the power to control things or change things, but he's doing that himself at every moment. He's not delegating it to partners, to others, to like whatever, like a king would have ministers and he would have helpers and stuff. God doesn't have or he doesn't need also helpers. So that's what it means by he has no partners. I guess that's what I understood. So that was the first thing I think we talked about. And then another thing we talked about is that because God doesn't have partners and he's doing everything himself at every moment and he can do it, that means it's also for us, he's reachable at any moment. So we don't have to go to someone else to reach God. We don't have to pray to something else. Praying to something else meaning, not just like praying, physically praying, but yeah. So basically that kind of not necessitates, but yeah, like it makes sense. Like if he's doing the things by himself at every moment and he has the power to do it, it means for us it's also possible and should be possible to communicate to him directly, to go to him directly, not to someone else who will like do it on behalf of him, basically.
Okay.
That's another thing I understood.
That's enough if you.
Okay,
No.
good.
I mean, I don't want to force you. Jazakallah khairan. So, okay, let's conclude here. Ask your question and then we can try to answer next week, inshallah.
Sure. So my clarifying question is, although we interact with beings that have will and even inanimate objects and other things, what we're saying is that these things are not intermediaries, but that we, through interacting with these things, despite their will and their this and that, we are actually interacting with Allah directly. Is that what we're saying?
The author says, yeah, like a kind of, and I'm saying kind of because like these are all conclusions, right? So next week, inshallah, we will study whether like how to reach this conclusion. So please take home message of this, today's week is not that, oh yeah, now I know he has no partner, I memorized this. This is not the case, right? Today, we only studied how this is relevant to us. We will next week, inshallah, we will start studying how this is true. Okay. So, okay. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا وأن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.